All right, welcome everybody. We're going to give this just a little bit here to let the room fill up. Very excited to be able to hang out with you guys this afternoon. I guess morning if you're in Pacific time, but for Texas and East Coast folks, Central and East Coast, we're in the early afternoon. So really appreciate everybody making some time for us today. Again, let's give it about 15, 20 seconds. Let the last few folks jump in and then we'll just jump right into it. So very happy to have you guys on. All right, so a couple of quick things. I'm Chris Field. I'm the Chief Growth Officer here at Holistiplan. The star of the show, of course, is going to be our CEO and co-founder, Roger Pine, who's going to be modeling the new PNC and kind of showing you guys, talking to you about the what and the how and why we chose PNC and all of that. But just a couple of things you always like to cover right at the beginning. Yes, we're recording this, and we will email that recording out to everybody that registered. We also do have the Q&A open. We don't have the ability to just be answering those questions like nonstop throughout the presentation. But if you do have a question, go ahead and ask it in the Q&A. If you like other people's questions and they're one you also share, feel free to upvote it and to show us what questions are most important to you. And we'll get to as many of those as we can at the end of Roger's presentation. But you guys are here because you heard we announced and launched a second product, a property and casualty product, which we've been working on for a while. We rolled it out this summer with several very large enterprises, had great feedback from them, and then we rolled it out to our subscribers, I guess, Roger, almost exactly a month ago, right? It was the last day of October, I believe. So
sounds about right. Yep.
A really good feedback so far. Really excited about this tool. And we'll talk more as we go about why we're excited about this, but we want to be very practical in this conversation today and not just show you a tool. We want to really talk about why this tool and why property and casualty reviews are such an important part of how an advisor is engaging and serving the families that they serve. So without further ado, Roger Pine, our CEO and co-founder, I'll let you take it over and we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Yeah. And so there's several reasons why property and casualty, and I'll go through a few of them. I mean, the first one is it's your job. I mean, honestly, it's part of the job of a financial planner to do this. There's a reason why property casualty is part of the CFP curriculum. It's part of the curriculum. It was on the exam. And the reason is the best laid financial plan could be completely upended by one of these events. Low probability, but catastrophic events. And I'll tell you what, I mean, if you have been in the business long enough, you have seen this happen in your practice. I have examples. I was an advisor for just under 10 years. Okay. Our firm had 250 clients. Okay. So 10 times 250 client years. I definitely remember seeing a full, complete loss on a home, burnt to the ground. I remember seeing an auto claim that was, 6-7 figures. I don't know if it actually went, I don't remember how it ended up, but I remember there was an auto claim that wasn't just a fender bender, right? And it was a little before I joined the firm, but we did have an umbrella claim as well. So it happens. You will see it happen. And actually, I'm interested in hearing, we're going to put up a survey. I'd be interested in hearing stories from other advisors about when you've seen property and casualty save the day. That's why it's part of our job, because it can save the day. All your best laid plans could be blown away with one of these. So that's kind of like that's the stick and the carrot. That's the stick. It's your job, and we're trying to prevent a catastrophe. The part that's a carrot is I think it's good business. Let me share my screen real quick here. Let's see, desktop 2. All right. Chris, my screen, people can see it? Yeah, okay. This chart, actually one of our own customers showed me this chart for the first time. They were using this chart to justify investing in property casualty within their own firm. I appreciated them doing that because we've used this chart like, I don't know, 1,000,000 times since then. Chris, they're on our Christmas card list, right? This Spectrum Group people? Okay, good. So they asked a group of financial planning clients. These are people who work with financial advisors. They said, what are the services you expect to be getting from your financial advisor? All right, that's the stuff that's in dark blue. By the way, I don't know if this slide is easy to see. I apologize. I'm copying, pasting other stuff. Dark blue is what they expected. Light blue, they then said, are you getting that service from your financial advisor? And that's what's in light blue. And I know it's small. I apologize, but zoom in on tax planning advice. 92% expect it. 25% are getting that. We're working on that, y'all. That's Holistiplan's first product. We're working on that. So thank you for helping us bring that bar up. But look at property and casualty insurance advice. 72% of clients said they expected their financial advisor to deliver some services related to that. I don't have information on what exactly the client thought that would be, but only 2% said they actually received it. So that's a huge difference. And so my argument is, if you just do any kind of property and casualty reviews for your clients, I'm not even saying it needs to be good, should be good, but if you do anything more than 0, you are already in the 98th percentile of all financial advisors, at least in this particular category, right? So to me, that's super compelling. And I'll say this, if you look at this entire list, let me go back so I don't have those red bars on it. I don't know if you can see this easily on y'all's screens, but of everything on that list, the easiest thing to do, I think the least amount of work, would be property casualty. I'm going to try to demonstrate that in a minute, but I mean, I would argue that of all the things to add, if you're going from 0 to 1, property casualty is the lightest lift for everybody. All right, and I'll tell you what, here's an action item for y'all. Ooh, I almost gave it away. All right, don't take our word for it, because honestly, when I saw that, I was like 70%. That seems really high. I mean, I don't know, but why don't you ask your clients? Like, we could tell you it's important to them or not, but what my argument is, you could today, like even during this call, you could be typing this up. Just type up an email that says, I worked some up last night. You could probably wordsmith it better than me, y'all. But I said, look, I'm here working with you on your financial goals. Just so you know, this thing could happen that could put them at risk. Your advisor, am willing to take a look at that just to make sure you're covered. And you might even save some money on premiums. If you're interested, just reply to this email and let me know. We're not giving them any instructions on what to do. We're just gauging the interest from our clients. I would be interested in seeing what the response would be. 2 things will happen. 1, a client might be like, yes, totally, let's do that. And then we'll talk about how you might go about providing that. But the clients who don't respond, they're going to see the email and they'll be like, my advisor's looking out for me. I'm not interested right now, but it might be later. But I'm glad my advisor's looking out for me on this stuff. That's pretty cool. I don't know. Maybe they'll talk to someone at a Christmas party 2 weeks from now and be like, yeah, my advisor was asking me to look at their property casualty. So there's an action item that y'all can take from this particular call. All right. So we sent this out, and let's say that 20 of our 100 clients that we work with said, yes, I would like for you to do a property casualty review for me. So what needs to happen? All right, so we have a product that we've worked on, and kind of like on the tax side, it starts with reading in some documents. So let me flip over to Holistiplan here. Chris, you can see my screen. You see Holistiplan stuff. I'm in the household screen here. And so if you turn on property and casualty insurance reviews, we have this. Did my screen just do the upward thing? I have an Apple and it does stuff when I do certain hand motions. I didn't mean for that to happen. But when you turn on property and casualty, which is available to a specific subscription tier within Holistiplan, you're going to see within the household screen the ability to create an insurance review. And you can give it a date and you upload documents against it. What we're going to ask for, so when your client writes back and says, yes, I'm interested, tell me how to do it, you're going to write back to them and say, I need the declaration page for your home, auto, and umbrella policies. If you're not sure what a declaration page looks like, it's pretty basic. It's usually like a 1-pager that's got like just the listings of the coverages. There's some level of standardization among them. but honestly, they can all kind of have their own flavors, which makes it kind of interesting from our perspective because we're trying to use machine learning to kind of read this stuff in. But this is what a declaration page looks like. It has a lot of standard type stuff, and then there'll be some things that aren't so standard that you kind of have to work out. Okay, what is water seepage? Is that flood? No. Is that backup? No, it's seepage. They're different things. So that's what a declaration page looks like. And what you do so I'm going to say, let's create an insurance review. I'll give it a date. I'm going to actually go straight into the report. And when I say upload, this would be blank when I'm just starting out, but on the left-hand side, I would say upload the declaration pages. So this is the part that's just like Holistiplan you're used to on the tax side, except instead of one document, it's 3 documents or potentially more, because your client might have 2 home insurance policies, right? They might have their main house, the vacation house. They may even have auto policies for both places. So we've certainly even started to see a variety of mixes of different mixes of policies. But yes, home, auto, umbrella, if they have umbrella, and then you can upload that. And we've got in red down here. So the technology to read in insurance declaration pages is like on a whole new level versus tax returns, because they're like a non-standard layout. So like your State Farm versus your Geico versus your Travelers. Like I said, they generally follow the same patterns, but it creates a more interesting machine learning problem for us. And so we're training those models. What we've decided to do initially is like we're having a human from our side review every single document people upload. And so that's why I'm not like uploading it and showing you how it's all going to go through in 45 seconds, because we purposefully designed it to not go through in 45 seconds. We're going to have oh my gosh, Chris, when you have an Apple computer and you do 2 thumbs up, it does. Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing.
This
I
is
upgraded.
this
I
is amazing. This is the
I
best day of my
upgraded.
life. Yeah, thank
I
you.
upgraded my Mac the other week, and like this is what it does when you do certain hand motions, and I gesticulate a lot when I talk. All right, and I lost my train of thought. Where was I, Chris?
Talking about the OCR, how the OCR differs because it's not
Yes,
standard documents.
that's correct. So in order to train the models, we are having humans try to do the review, but then everything that gets uploaded allows the models to get smarter. That's very roughly what we did on the tax side, except it's a little bit more challenging of a problem. It's interesting if you're into this stuff. But anyway, that's what happens. You'll upload the documents. We will take a look, and then we'll let you know when they're ready to look at. So don't do this 15 minutes before the review meeting. Do it the night before the review meeting. All right. Okay. So I've uploaded my 3 documents or potentially more, but my home, auto, and umbrella insurance documents. And then we have this report. This is the report that Holistiplan makes. It looks a lot like the tax report. You're used to the tax report. We got your logo up here. One of our clients actually asked us to allow them to customize the color of this ribbon. So that's like a new thing that exists in property casualty, and we're going to put back into tax reports. So if this ribbon, if the Holistiplan green you're as sick of looking at as we are, we can put your color on there. So anyway, that's one of the things you'll see is, first of all, up top, this is kind of the summary information, just like in the tax report, just the numbers. A lot of it is stuff that's repeated from the declaration page, but it's maybe sometimes organized in a way that hopefully we think is a little easier to explain things to the client. Then you'll see down below this red, yellow, green way of displaying we call them insights on this report. We call them observations on the tax report. And if you'll indulge me, Chris, I'm going to go on a rant about red, yellow, green, because that's something that I've been obsessed with for like a long time. I'm going to flip you back to my slides. So I don't know anything about cars. I really don't. I know nothing about cars. I'm the guy who still takes his car to the dealer, even though I know it's more expensive to do that. But whenever I take my car into the dealership, they give me a report that looks like this. And I've been obsessed with this report for years. I used to have it on my desk when I was a financial advisor. And the reason for that is it reminds me that there's value in showing the client what you looked at, even if you didn't find anything, right? I think about Yeah, I reminded myself of that because I would do like a tax return review, for example. I would, we didn't have Holistiplan back then. So it'd be like 45 minutes. I'm flipping through a tax return, I'm doing this review, and maybe I just came up with like one or two things or nothing to go back to the client with, right? So my mindset originally was, well, I didn't find anything. So, oh, well, I'll write to the client, thank you for sending me the tax return. I'll ask for it again next year. Or maybe I'd find one or two things and I would write about that. Or I would only bring up the problems, right? I didn't write about these are the things I looked at that look fine. And so when you think about it from the perspective of the client, they never saw the 45 minutes of work that I put into reviewing that tax return. They never saw that. Um, they only saw my one liner, said you should do this thing or that. And also, they didn't see that things were okay. I was just the bearer of bad news all the time, right? I found a mistake on your return. I didn't point out the other things that were great about the return. And so I had this on my desk as a reminder that there's value in just showing when things are green. There's value in showing I did the work to look at this thing and it's okay. And part of our job as advisors is, yes, to come up with great, insightful ideas, but part of it is to remove the worries about finance and to show people like someone looked at this and it looks okay. There's value in that. And actually, that's a lesson I've learned again. You're working at Holistiplan. When we first built the product, that was very much about finding stuff. And the reality is, we hear a lot from advisors that there's just value in showing that tax report, explaining you're in this marginal bracket, you're in that marginal capital gains bracket. It's not an insight, it's just information that people find useful. And I think it gives you more credibility when you find something that is in the red to say, I looked at these 75 things and I've highlighted these two things that are super important to focus on versus thanks for the tax return. These are two things to focus on. Anyway, okay, rant over. I'm a huge believer in this and I appreciate the Toyota dealership for teaching me that. And I appreciate Holistiplan's users for reminding me of that as they use our tax report. So the same idea is there for the insurance report. And I'm not planning to go through like a lot of like intricate insurance stuff here, but I'll point out a few things that I've kind of learned as we were putting this thing together. So you can kind of get a feel for the depth of some of the things that we've uncovered as we've been building this. Still building more, by the way. There's a whole bunch of state level stuff I want to add in. But so for example, this first one, the home last shopped. I shared office space with an insurance agent for a while. And they taught me that if you shop the policy every year, like I've seen people recommend, like shop your insurance every single year. Apparently, like you get on a list eventually, and then the insurance companies kind of start backing away from giving you quotes. And so the advice we got was, yes, shop, but maybe around every 3 years. So like that's something we learned. So it says this policy was shopped more than 3 years ago, and we gave that a yellow. By the way, if you disagree with me, if you say, you know what, we should shop the policy every single year, that's the opinion of our firm, these things are configurable. So that's different from how we built the tax report. That's configurable. So you can say, my firm, we're going to throw up a yellow sign if you have not shopped the policy in 2 years or 5 years or whatever it needs, whatever you want it to be. So those things are configurable now.
Roger, will you zoom in a little bit on your screen so people can read
Oh,
the
okay.
insights a little more clearly?
All right. How do I do that? Let's see. I've zoomed in on the wrong screen. Can we see that better?
Here we go. Yep. Thank you.
They had no hope of reading that first slide then. If they
Yeah,
can't,
it was like an eye test when you're just like, now you're just messing with me right now. No one's reading this bottom line.
Yeah, okay. I apologize for
We're
that.
good now. No, the
Good
fireworks made
now.
up for it. I promise you.
Oh yes, indeed. All right. Well, yeah. So that's an example. What are some other ones? I learned that I always knew about named perils versus open perils for dwelling, but apparently you can have, I guess there are forms of the home insurance policy where property is on named perils instead of open perils. And so we're able to call that sort of thing out. Again, these things are kind of edge cases, but it's worth bringing up with the clients because their risk profile, their perception of risk and what they want to cover or not may be different from ours. And so it's worth highlighting some of these things. Hey, your policy is named perils only, meaning you'll only be covered for these things that are named on the policy, versus open, meaning it's only the things that are, it's everything minus the things excluded. What are some other little things? Let me show you some. So one of the things that's different about insurance versus reading a tax return is there's information that is useful for this analysis that is not on the declarations page. Now, when we upload tax returns into Holistiplan, that's like 99% of what we need. Sometimes we ask for like your birth date, what state do they live in, but generally everything's pretty much in the document for what we need. Whereas insurance, you can go a lot deeper if you can pull in a few more things in that are not on the policy themselves. So we added this little house here. This is you, the advisor. So going through the workflow here, you've asked your client for their documents. Thank you for the documents. They maybe had to go to their agent, so you might have to give them some instructions on what you're looking for, but the agent knows what a deck page is. You're going to upload that in. But then there are a few questions to answer with the client. For example, remember I talked about the last shop date? That's not generally on the declarations page. So that's a conversation with the client. When was this last shopped? A lot of time, not always, but a lot of times the actual form is not written on the policy. Sometimes it's there, but sometimes it's not on the deck page that you're looking at. Things like, do they have a metal roof? When you have a metal roof, you can have different coverages for a true like failure of the roof, but also cosmetic damage. A metal roof can get dented with hail, but even if it's not leaking, you can have different types of coverage for the cosmetic damage versus a leak. And the same is for aluminum siding, for example. So like we could ask the client, do you have a metal roof? If so, the report will pull in some more insights or notes related to a metal roof that allows them to think a little bit more about, do I care about cosmetic coverage or not? You, the advisor, bringing that up, and they can make the choice with their agent as to whether or not they care about adding that coverage or not. One of the things that is critical on home insurance, and I think it's an insight that a lot of clients are not aware of, is that we're insuring to replace the house, to build it. We're not insuring for the appraised value of the house. And sometimes the divergence between those two can be pretty enormous, especially if it's like an older home. If it's a brand new mansion, they're going to be about the same. But those can start to diverge pretty drastically, and you could have a situation where the coverage isn't where it should be. And so let me close this, and it's so big now. I got to do some scrolling to get around here. Somewhere in here, I've got dwelling coverage. Oh, look at this. I had $900,000 worth of dwelling coverage at the house worth $245. All right, but you could have a situation where you're calling out, okay, let's check the dwelling coverage versus the replacement cost. We had a number of advisors write to us in our very early days of this product and say, how am I supposed to know what the replacement cost is? And so we contracted with this company called CoreLogic. You can Google them. You've heard of maybe the Schiller CoreLogic Home Index. They're like the number one provider of home valuation data. It's the same company that the insurance agents are using. And they told us we're the very first advisor-facing product or company that has ever contracted with them for this information. So you will have access to that as part of your subscription to Property Casualty. And I was going to put this in. I put in this one house. I was going to put in another. I should have cleared it out, but let's do it again. I'm going to put, this is my grandmother's old address. She lived on Hilltop Drive in Lawrence, Kansas. Kansas, and her zip code was all right. So it's going to show the same number as before, but that's going out to CoreLogic database, and it's going to give me an initial valuation, and it's also going to give me back the information that CoreLogic has in their database that they use to generate this rebuilding cost estimate, including things like what is the square footage of the house, what year was it built. We can even go deeper with like, is the kitchen custom or builder's grade and all that stuff. They use information based on not just the zip code, but like the block that the house is on, the general ages of the homes. So we found it to be generally pretty accurate, but it's a tool that you can use to at least get your client in the right direction of what the rebuilding cost may be. So this is something that you'll have access to as part of property casualty. So you can say, okay, $245,000. That is what we're going to say is the valuation, not the valuation, the estimated rebuilding cost of this home. And again, we were the first one they've ever talked to on the advisor space doing this. And you're going to have the same exact database that the property and casualty agents have access to when they're quoting policies. All right, moving along. Let me go down to, so we've got this red, yellow, green stuff. And like I said, the idea there is not just to show the stuff that's red. These are all the scary things, but also these are the things that look okay, but you might want to just take a look again, right? We also have what we call notes. Like these are the things that you'll notice have no red, yellow, green next to them because they're more like informational. So for example, what's a good example? I mean, if you rent your house out on Airbnb, make sure you talk to your agent about that. What's another one? If you got, remember I don't know if you saw on that other modal that I popped up, it said, do they have solar panels? If they do, then we're going to say, look, solar panels are generally covered, but you need to check. I remember when I was an advisor, we always advised our clients, especially around the holidays, actually. This could be an email blast for y'all. Just think about it. Generally around the holidays, I would say this is the time of year to take an inventory of your personal property, right? Because in the event of a claim, in the event of a total loss, you're going to have to be able to go to the insurance agency and say, these are the things that I lost. I had 6 blue suits and 1 black suit and 15 spoons, or I don't know what it is. And the reason I would say during the holidays is you're kind of like chilling out in the home for a while anyway. You got kids around who might be willing to take pictures with you. New stuff is coming into the house. It's just like a good time, I felt like, to take that inventory. So you might think about that as you think of your last email blast out to your clients at the end of the year. But those are the notes. So there's like insights and notes. Just like on the tax report, we can show or hide things. We can move them around, and we can add our own if there's other stuff we want to call out, just like on the tax report. Same deal. Auto is generally a little less. Home is the one that's got the most stuff going on, right? That's the biggest dollars. There's always the most variation across the policies. Auto's still interesting. Let me see what it was interesting on here. Here's one thing that I learned over the summer, and I thought this was really a fascinating take. When I was an advisor, we generally would say to our clients, I mean, these are people, they were high net worth, and we would say, do you really need to have rental car coverage on your policy? I mean, having to rent a car when your car's in the shop is an annoyance, but it's not going to be make or break for you. Like, it's not a catastrophic loss for you. So that was the conversation we would have, and they could, go to their agent and see what the difference was in premium. I heard a really interesting point from an advisor we talked to this summer who said, well, actually, these days, when your car's in the shop, especially when it's body work, it's there for a really long time. I mean, like 15 years ago, you needed a new bumper. Like you're in and out in 3 days. They just buff out the dent and you're done. But now the bumper's got, it's like more expensive than the space shuttle. It's got lasers and stuff going in. And so like it's like a month. And so his point was actually now that firm, they have switched to recommending that everybody get the rental car coverage. Maybe again, not as a catastrophic monetary value coverage, but as a general, like, removing annoyance from your life thing, which again is part of our job as financial advisors, is both that and the plan itself. So I thought that was a really interesting viewpoint. And that's another example of you, the advisor, or you, the firm, at a firm level can say, we believe in rental car coverage or we don't. And then so our system will automatically tailor it both ways based on if you're a believer one way or the other. So yeah, same deal on vehicle where we've got the red, yellow, green type stuff. And you can see that rental car coverage thing is here. Roadside assistance is another similar thing. Do you need it or not? Another area where we allow you to put in thresholds for red, yellow, green is, at what point do you drop the collision or comprehensive coverage, right? If the car's worth $35. Do you really need collision insurance? You're just going to write it off. And so you're able to set that threshold of where we'll say, this car is only worth this amount. You may consider dropping collision on it. By the way, Kelley Blue Book integration is on our list. It does not exist yet, but we're pumped up about that, because that'd be great. Because then you can just say, this is the description of the cars, this is the general condition, and then we can just pull the valuation in from Kelley Blue Book. Doesn't exist yet, but it's on the roadmap. And then just getting to umbrella. Do they have it or not, right? I mean, that's the first thing. And then a lot of times with umbrella, we're talking about, do the underlying limits line up, right? Because umbrella assumes that there's a certain level of underlying coverage, and then it sits on top of that. And I've seen cases where there's a gap, or I've seen places where there's overlap, and so the software can check for that. Here's another thing I learned over the summer, that I found really interesting, which was, there's a setting, there's a coverage you can get where your umbrella coverage extends your uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage on your auto. And I've very rarely seen that checked. Like we see a lot of umbrella coverage now, and I look at them and I very rarely see it actually enabled. But I was talking again with an agent who had an example. Where was it? He had a really good example. And actually we've built this in so you can, because I don't know, if you don't have an anecdote for some of these things, we're building them in so that you can say, oh yeah, well, I don't have one of these, but I heard about, and this is a real case. This was a cyclist in Austin. This person was hit by a driver. And so that driver's insurance picked up the first, I don't know, $100,000, $200,000 of this person's injuries, but they were like, it was like $1 million of injuries. And so that cyclist used their own umbrella coverage to cover their own injuries as the victim of this in this accident, because they happen to have that uninsured, underinsured motorist extension on their umbrella coverage, right? So to me, that's just like a super fascinating thing to bring up with a client. And the client can make the choice either way. But if the client's I don't know, a triathlete and they're always out on the road on their bikes, like this is something that might really resonate with them, this particular story. And so I feel like, again, like that's our job as advisors is yes, make sure that the plan is protected, but then can we bring insights to the client that they can then bring to their agent? And so that's the last piece of this. Actually, hold on, let me just show you that firm settings thing. That's in settings. There's insurance parameters button here. I'm not going to go through them but you can see, like, remember that reshop insurance thing I was talking about? It's going to reshop it. It's going to put up that warning if it hasn't been shopped for over 3 years, but we can change that to something else, right? That's the idea behind giving you some ability to determine when those red, yellows, and greens pop up. Okay, so we've run the report. We got all the new information in. We talked with our clients about it. And now this is why I argue this is not that much work. Because all we did, we uploaded a document. We did ask a few questions here. But then now, unless I'm mistaken, I would guess most of the advisors on this call are not licensed property and casualty insurance agents. So this is the part where we don't have to do any of this stuff downstream of this. We're going to hand our clients a list of questions to take to their agent. And by the way, that's an enhancement we're working on. I think that this report is too much for the client to print out and like walk into the agent's office with. So we're designing a thing that's going to allow you to say, boom, boom, boom. These are the things worth talking about with the agent. And then they have like a script with the top, 8 questions or whatever to go to their agent to talk about the coverage in more detail. But then it's their problem to write the coverage, not yours, the advisor. So that's why I argue it's like actually less work. There's no scenario analysis we got to dig into on this stuff. We don't have to like model things. We're just purely trying to find big picture stories, educate the client, and then allow them to go talk with the expert to actually do the execution. That's not our job as the advisor. We're not giving insurance advice. We're just pointing them in the right direction. So that's why I argue it's a little bit less. I'm trying to think what else I missed. We've got this, just so you know, like we've got this on the left-hand side, that's where we're doing data entry, and the right-hand side is the document. If you're in with your client in person, you could pop up this presentation mode, and it's just, I probably should have done this when they told me to make the screen bigger, but that's kind of like the final piece to like presenting it or printing it. That's the presentation mode piece. I think in general, that is the end to end. So I think with that, Chris, I'm happy to answer questions unless I missed something. Did I miss something that we should have talked about, Chris?
I'll just add a couple of things or kind of stick a flag in a couple of things that I think are pretty important. So, I mean, I think what you started the whole call off with is too important not to mention again, and that is advisors spend hundreds of hours in many cases making sure clients have what they need for the retirement. It feels prudent that we would spend a fraction of that time making sure that all of that work they've done to build up their net worth is actually protected. So to me, the value to the time cost of a conversation like this is it's not debatable. I think the second thing is I love that advisors, because they're not selling this coverage, they're truly an objective party, right? So they can say, hey, I'm not bringing this to you because, hey, look, we are going to unveil a 7-step process for how we can sell you all of these products. It's like, my job is to be the quarterback of your finances. I see some gaps here that I think are important for you to go talk to your agent about. And in many cases, just like with CPAs and taxes, and in a lot of cases, the agent is signing that person up. I mean, you remember that we talked to an insurance agent a while back and we were like, he gets somebody on board, they sign up for the stuff, and in many cases, he goes years without ever speaking to them again.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't know that their net worth has tripled, right? He doesn't know that they've taken on a huge inheritance or, whatever the thing is, he has no clue. And so he's not in a position, or he or she is not in a position to say, hey, should you get more umbrella coverage? Because he doesn't know what their net worth is. You know what their net worth is. You know what their assets are, and in a way that the insurance agent doesn't know.
Yeah, and related to that is, at least in my experience, the agent is not always optimizing for what you, the advisor, are optimizing for.
Totally.
The thing that we just talked about, like we, the advisor, are optimizing for the financial outcome and protecting their assets over the long term. A lot of times, and I'm not throwing shade at a profession or anything like that, but like insurance, especially like these lines of insurance, it's a zero-sum game. Like everybody has to have auto insurance. And so they're usually just fighting a battle. It's like a volume business. They're just trying to, and a lot of times they're just trying to win on price.
Yeah.
And so they'll get your client in there. And if your client doesn't come in with good questions, the agent doesn't know what to optimize for. And so they're going to optimize for price. And so they're going to drop that uninsured motorist coverage to the bare minimum. They will probably, oh, there goes my Apple computer again with the they'll do that. They'll optimize. They probably won't have a conversation with your client about adding underinsured motorist extension coverage to the umbrella, because why would you? It's going to increase the cost. And so that's part of our job, is especially if our clients are high net worth, or the types of people who generally work with advisors, they're maybe a little more discerning. They're willing to pay a premium for better advice and for better coverage. And so, we're even when the insurance agent talked to them last week, it's potentially they're not looking at the things that we need them to look at.
That's right. Okay, so we do have a bunch of questions. I want to try to cover as many of these as we can. First and foremost, let's talk about pricing, because people are asking, how do I get access to this? How do I do it? So do you want to talk about pricing, Roger? And then I'll give specific instructions on what to do to get started.
Yeah. So, I mean, like we did this in other parts of our software where we have like different tiers of the subscriptions unlock different functionality. And so we have like a starter tier, which I've always really worked hard to protect, which is that it allows you to upload returns and get access to scenario analysis. But then we started adding things like tax letter and stuff like that, and we made that the premium tier. Well, we're rolling out what we're calling like this premium plus tier that will have property and casualty insurance in it, some stuff with single sign-on. So if you're a firm that uses single sign-on and that's something that you've invested in, that's going to be rolled into there. Some really interesting tools that will roll out in 2024 that I think will help us kind of orchestrate how we get tax returns from clients and PNC documents from clients. So we're calling that Premium Plus. That kicks in at it's like $18.99, assuming no discounts or anything like that are in play. And a property casualty insurance review, we still do this whole thing of uploads, right? Because you're still uploading something into the system. We still have people who are reviewing these documents. And so we still count it against that total uploads count. So one insurance report, like I just showed you one, even though it's 3 documents, that's one upload, if that makes sense. So it's an $18.99 plan. How many uploads is that, Chris? 150 or something like that?
150, yep. And
you can use that for tax, for insurance, and they all count as one.
Yep.
Right.
So just to be clear, if you want to upgrade inside of Holistiplan, you go to settings, then you click on subscription, you upgrade to the $18.99 a year Premium Plus, and then that gives you access. And then to turn it on, which what somebody asked about Premium Plus, you go to
if you're already there. Yeah.
Yeah, you go to settings and then security, and then you can toggle on for property and casualty, but you won't see that toggle until you're Premium Plus. So first, upgrade to Premium Plus under that subscriptions upgrade page, and then go to that security settings and toggle on premium property and casualty. But like Roger said, it was one of the most popular questions. So I'm going to say it again. All 3 documents count as one upload. So you $18.99, which is the lowest level to have access to PNC. You choose how you want to use them. If you want to use 125 tax uploads and 25 PNC, that's great. If you want to reverse it, that's great. If you want to split it, that's great. So that's pretty straightforward. You think about it, 150 total uploads, $18.99. You're basically $12 for every time you're getting one of these reports to present to a client, which is, still pretty good pricing. So, okay, Roger, let's hit some of the most popular questions, and we'll get through as many of these as we can.
Let's do it.
Someone asked, can you add the red, yellow, green to the tax report notes editable by the advisor?
Yeah, I've thought about that. I mean, I like the idea, right? It's the same concept. I was thinking today, just this morning, though, like, what would be red, yellow, and green? So some of the things I think it makes sense for, but then I think a lot of the things on the tax side, it's less, because red, yellow, and green is like, I have an opinion on your status within something. So anyway, I'd be interested in this advisor reaching out to us about like what would be an example. But yeah, I mean, I love the idea. I mean, like you could hear, like I went on a rant for a whole 5 minutes about red, yellow, and green. I love the idea of showing an opinionated version of here's everything I looked at, and I'm just highlighting for you the things that are okay. That helps the client feel good. I like to see those greens, right? So yeah, help me think through that. I'd be happy to have that be something we add to tax report.
Roger, Scott asked if in the future we might consider creating a way for the to send the client an email with a survey link that asked about those house details, like the metal roof, the short-term rental, etc.
Right.
Would we consider building something in the software? That was the second most popular question we got, that sent them that automated survey.
Yeah, to make it more like hands-off. Yes. So the answer is yes. And step 1 on that is something we're already working on. It's very close to the finish line on the tax side, and we'll do it on the property casualty side, which is, and I showed this in some other thing we did, but like sending a link to your client to first of all, just upload the documents themselves. Give them a unique link that says, hey, I've asked for these documents, drop them here, and then you, the advisor, get a notice when it's hit. Now, once we've done that, and again, we're super close on that, I'm excited about that. Once we've done that, it's not that much of a stretch to allow the client in the same place to answer some of these clarifying questions. So the answer is absolutely yes. I'm excited about that, but we got to build some of these foundational things first, because once you flip over to the client touching Holistiplan, that's a whole other thing that we have to make sure that we do extremely well, right? So it's not something we're handling lightly, let's put it that way. But yes, good idea.
Zach, you asked if the software has any idea if a client is getting a good premium? Like, does it have a way to shop other estimated premiums? That's not something that's
Right.
part of this functionality right now. And I don't think we intend to, that's kind of a whole different.
Yeah. I remember one customer brought that up earlier this year, and they're like, could you, because it's so regional and the just the nature of the coverage is not homogeneous. I think it'd be very challenging. It's not impossible, but I just don't think that's necessarily where we want to go. I think that there's so much value just in having the conversation with the client and then recognizing that now I'm going to hand this over to you to talk to your agent about this. Um,
Yep.
I love the idea. I think I think it's getting a little bit too far out of our lane to try to build that.
Okay. Ryan asked about providing a link to the Spectrum Group study. So yes, I'll have Griffin include that PDF when we send out this recording afterwards. So yes, we will include that Spectrum Group study. Parveen asked if home, auto, and umbrella are uploaded all together, does the analysis look across all of them to highlight if home and auto has the minimal coverage required
Yes.
by umbrella?
Yes. Yeah. I mentioned that it's there at the very bottom. It's going to check if there's an overlap or if there's a gap. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that we highlight in the software.
Awesome. Adrian asked about an umbrella calculator to know how much a client should have. I don't think we intend to maybe do that. It's not there yet, but what are your thoughts on that long term, Roger?
Yeah. So I didn't show this, but um, in that I popped open the little one for homeowners where there was extra information to add. Auto and umbrella have the same thing. And right now, what umbrella has is it's not a calculator. It's one line. It's like, what are the assets we're trying to protect, right? And I guess that's an interesting idea to allow the advisor to kind of build up that from like a spreadsheet sort of model. But right now, you got to enter a total. That gets challenging if we tried to really automate that, just because it could be different state by state. So, like in Texas, your homestead, it's called, either your homestead is free from or is theoretically protected from lawsuits. So buy a big old house in Texas if you want one. That's why Chris has a ranch,
So true.
and a
So
huge
true.
hat with cattle,
So
um,
true.
because of the homestead reason. So like you wouldn't be able to like automate that because it's different state by state, but it's an interesting idea, yeah, to allow if that's what they're asking about, it's like building up a total. But right now you just enter the total and then our software will check like you have $1 million of coverage, you have $3 million of assets to protect. Is that enough? That's a discussion.
Yep. Roger, Scott asked if we had any intentions. He said he loved it. Do we have any intentions over time to expand into other insurance? This might be a good time for you to talk about what we do have plans to maybe expand into in 2024, because I don't think it's that right now.
Well, I mean, if they're asking about life and disability, the
That's
answer
what he was
is
asking
not
about. Yeah.
on. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's not going to be next. People, every time we talk about property casualty, it's true. People talk about life and disability. We're not quite there for that one. I think um, that goes way deeper. Although that said, speaking as an advisor, like that was the thing I had the most examples of was disability. I had the most concrete examples of clients filing on disability. Um, we do have stuff to do on here, by the way. Speaking of insurance, scheduled items coverage, right? Because sometimes that's bundled with your home insurance. Sometimes it's a separate policy. Boats and RVs. Somebody uploaded a electric bike policy in the last 2 months, which was new to me. So we're going to hit that stuff first. That's going to be the things we focus on. It's still property casualty, stay within that lane, and then we can, think of what comes next. We've got a list. Don't worry.
Yep. I think this is important. Several people are asking about renters insurance because,
Mhm.
especially in states like New York, where there's
Yep.
a lot more renters than owners. Can you speak to that?
Yes. Yeah. So you can upload renter's insurance. There's no dwelling coverage for that. And so when you upload renter's insurance, this report, I'm not sharing my screen anymore, but the report changes. The dwelling stuff goes away. But there's a little checkbox on renters. One of the things that people have been uploading that we do not yet support, which we are debating support for, and advisors see a lot of it, which is why we're giving it serious consideration is landlord insurance. So your clients who own rental properties and insure that as like a bit, it's really business insurance rather than their own personal. And so at this moment, we've not built in support for like landlord insurance. It's pretty similar, honestly, than to home. So we might get there, but just so you know, if like you've got some client with some portfolio of 10 rental properties, you're going to be disappointed if you're looking to upload all 20 of those landlord policies.
Right. So I'm clicking through here, insurance.
Chris, can I, while you're looking, let me say one thing about the usage credit, because one thing we didn't talk about is that CoreLogic thing. So when we go out to CoreLogic to grab the rebuilding cost of the home, that is like super duper expensive. They are a monopoly business, and they charge us for every single one of those API calls we do to them. And so what we've decided to do is we'll bundle it in. So like you get one free call to CoreLogic per insurance report. And we're just trying to protect against some intern in the office, like looking up everybody in their whole neighborhood. Like that would put us out of business. Chris would have to sell his ranch, which we don't want. And so like you get one call to CoreLogic per insurance report for free. That's like built in. We eat that one. But then otherwise, if you do a second one, or you like read, or if that intern starts playing around, like that will charge you an upload. Like that's kind of like the currency that we have. So you'll be charged an upload. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that because we didn't mention that earlier.
Yep. And several of you have asked about being able to read commercial insurance documents at this time,
Not right now.
like the core tax product,
right?
Just sticking to personal.
Yep. I mentioned the landlord thing. Like we've seen a number of people upload them. So clearly there's demand for that. I mean, we're not blind to the fact that that's a thing that a lot of clients have, especially people who work with advisors. It's just not there right now.
Yep. There was something else that was pretty similar around, or several people had asked about, could you give a little more clarification about like boats or marine vessel stuff
It's coming. Yeah. How do boats work? Well, I don't, it's not something I have a lot of firsthand experience with, I'll be honest. But I think boats, you've got the boat and then you got the trailer as separate. So we're going to build that out. Boats, RVs. I had a client once who had a policy for a motorcycle trailer. It was a trailer for his motorcycle. And he sent me, I was like, what is this thing? Anyway, that was a new one for me.
Fascinating.
Motorcycle trailer policy is low on our list, but it'll be on there, Chris.
Well, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
The thoroughness is good. So yeah, I mean, we've answered the only other question I think that's fairly popular on here that maybe we're just us kind of closing this out, Roger, is we don't intend to do like a tiny little fraction of uploads available, like between that $9.99 and $18.99 level. Right now, that's not something that we've talked about doing. When we think about the work that went into building the product and just being able to support it, and the way we're organizing all of the pricing structures at this point, that $18.99 is the place where someone needs to be able to access this part of the product.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it's like a different trim level on a car, or different attachments on a vacuum cleaner. I mean, like that's how we're doing it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's worth adding, like, the reason we wanted to leave where you're choosing how you use your uploads between tax and PNC is we knew not everybody uses uploads the same way. So rather than saying, this is exactly how many of these uploads you have, and you're like, well, I'm not going to use that many. That's why we're kind of letting you use that hybrid system. So that's what we're doing at this point, and certainly excited to continue to see the growth. And as we add new things, as Roger alluded to, in 2024, we're going to continue. Our vision and goal every day is to make the product more and more valuable for you. So that's what we're going to continue doing every single day.
Yeah, second that. I mean, like all the good ideas we have didn't come from us. They came from our customers, like including property casualty. Like
Yep.
Kevin and I, when we first started the business, like we built property casualty before tax, and it just kind of sat there fallow for years. And last year, one of our customers came to us and said, "Hey, look, this is really important to us. We want a way to start doing this at scale, but I'm worried about," this is her talking, "but I'm worried about making sure all of my advisors are doing something standardized, that they're coming up with the same outputs when they're all looking at this stuff. That's a relatively new service for us." She needed a way to do this in a standardized way. And so I was like, cool, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. It was our own customers who've helped us build this out. And so as we move forward with this, I've already identified a few things we're going to do to improve it even from here. So yeah, that's the fun of my job, is listening to all these smart advisors. Some of them have really good ideas, some of them have terrible ideas, but in general, they're good ideas. And my job is to sift through them and try to make them happen.
Yep. And the good news is you can't get to the great ones without the ones that aren't as great. And so we say, bring it on. If you have
Yes.
an answer, if you have something you think, everything's possible in software, it's just not
True.
always that everything is what we can do with limited resources. So,
Right.
all right, Roger, thank you. Thanks to all of you for coming today. It was really fun to have you on. Very, very excited about the opportunity for many of you to start using this PNC product. And if you have questions, you know how to find us. You click that support button from within Holistiplan. This is a super busy time of the year. 2 days ago, we had our most number of active users in one day. We had almost 5,000 unique active users in the software in one day on Tuesday. So, and then yesterday was almost just as many. So we know you're doing lots of year-end planning. Thank you for what you're doing to serve your clients. And thank you for letting Holistiplan be a part of it. You guys have a great rest of the day, and we'll get this recording over to you tomorrow.
Thanks, y'all.